What's going on, everybody? Dominic here in another beautiful Warrior Wisdom Walk. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm really excited to report that for the first time ever, I've maxed out my Ethos weighted vest. So I started at 20 pounds, then went to 50 pounds, then went to 60 pounds. And today I'm at 75 pounds. And boy, can I feel those extra 15 pounds. It's impressive how much of a difference that makes. But continuing to stay uncomfortable, right? Get uncomfortable and stay there, as I said in my first video. So today's Warrior Wisdom Talk is going to be for all you sales leaders out there and all you owners, whoever is overseeing that sales team. If you want to figure out a way to increase your performance, to increase conversion on leads, and ultimately have a much better time holding your sales team accountable, obviously we all dream of having a culture of accountability, right? Then this Warrior Wisdom Walk is for you. And the subject of this Warrior Wisdom Walk is a phone call must be placed from inside every home on every lead without exception. And what I mean by that is you're issuing out very expensive leads to your sales team, are you not? What is your average cost for an issue lead? Is it $200? Is it $400? Is it $600? So you're spending anywhere from $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 a month issuing out these precious leads to these closers. You want to make sure that you have some way to hold them accountable for proper lead handling etiquette, communication, and ultimately maximizing conversion on every precious lead that you give them, right? So I hope that that's a goal of yours, because results are what matter. And one of the policies we train on at Grassi University that helps companies achieve this in a big way is the simple communication policy that a phone call must be placed from inside every home on every lead without exception. And I just want to give you a case study that happened to me recently. So I have a client of mine that just implemented this policy last month, and within less than 30 days, their company-wide closing percentage jumped by over 10%. Now think of your sales team, okay? If your cumulative closing percentage company-wide went up by 10%, what would that mean for you and your business? And that's just the beginning, right? So this policy is an absolute game changer. And I've seen this happen with many, many companies that have implemented this policy, all right? So now I just want to clarify what this policy means. Again, a phone call placed from inside every home and every lead. That means if I'm a salesperson, I'm issued a lead, and I go to that house, I go to the appointment, there's zero circumstances that can occur where I'm leaving that lead or that appointment or that home without calling somebody for some reason. Now, of course, the nature of these calls are going to vary depending on the circumstances. And there's essentially three different types of calls a salesperson would make. And it goes as follows. The first call, how's it going? First call would be, for any reason they're not able to get into a full presentation, deliver a price. So for any reason they have to leave prematurely, they have to leave on a no-show, a one-legger, time constraint issues, getting thrown out, whatever the circumstance, for any reason they're not able to get into a full presentation, deliver a price, a salesperson is not able to leave the home until they call somebody and report what's happening from the home, okay? And I got several different stories I can share, but let's say it's a no-show situation, okay? So sales rep knocks on the door and it's a no-show. The sales rep is not gonna just wait around for however much time they want and then leave and then call me 20, 30 minutes later and tell me, well, it was a no-show and I left. The second they determine it's a no-show, they're going to call typically the call center or the dispatch team right away. So if I have a 10 a.m. lead, that salesperson's going to call at like 10:01, 10:02, shortly after the scheduled time slot. And they're going to report that it's a no-show. And then someone from your call center, not the salesperson, somebody from the call center is going to reach out to that homeowner to see what's going on. Maybe the homeowner got stuck in traffic. Maybe they had to go quick, run some errands. Maybe they had a small emergency. Things happen, right? Life happens. So the salesperson is not going to sprint out to their car the second they determine it's a no-show, leave the home, and then call me 30 minutes later saying, hey, I waited around for half an hour as a no-show. So we're going to have them call right away and report that it's a no-show, because if a sales rep calls me 30 minutes after the scheduled time to report that it was a no-show, I'm going to assume that they were late And the reason why the customers weren't home is because the salesperson was late. So of course, the salesperson needs to cover their own rear end, right? CYA. And they do that by making these calls when needed. So now the no-show situation, I've required all my salespeople have to wait around a no-show at least 45 minutes. At least 45 minutes. Because I found that there were so many circumstances where they would wait around for 20, 30 minutes, and then they would leave. Let's say they leave 20 minutes later, and the homeowner would show up 35 minutes later. And it's amazing how much distance a salesperson can travel in 15 minutes, right? When they're leaving. And then they have to turn all the way back around and come back to the appointment. So 45 minutes was really that sweet spot where if they showed up, they would typically show up by then, and if they didn't, it was truly a no-show situation. I would also tell my salespeople, how bad do you want it? How bad do you really want it? So if you have no other appointments going on that day, how long are you willing to wait around on a no-show? So I had stories where salespeople waited around for over 2 hours on a no-show, and then the homeowners came back. Of course, they felt bad. They had sympathy and empathy for the salesperson, and you'll get into a presentation and close it for over 40 grand. So as most people would have called that in for a reset or an NQ or just left, that salesperson wanted it bad, waited around, and made it happen. So those are the little things that can make all the difference. So again, the first call, if it's a no-show, make sure they're calling right away from the home, and then someone from the call center should be reaching out to the homeowner, not the salesperson. Now you may be asking, well, why would you do that, Dominic? You only have one opportunity to make a good first impression with your prospects, right? And I'm sure you've all had this experience. Have you ever talked to somebody on the phone and you started making judgment on them as a person and started kind of imagining what they looked like? And then when you met them in person, face to face, they were nothing like they sounded on the phone. The picture and image you had in your mind of how they looked and their mannerisms was night and day different than what they actually looked like in person. So I want to make sure I'm not having that salesperson roar upstream in any form of the fashion that they're giving themselves the upper hand. And we all know that we only have one opportunity to make the right first impression. And I want my salespeople to make that face-to-face in person, not over the phone. So someone from your call center should be making those calls. So now the next type of call, let's say someone tries to cancel the appointment. So sales rep knocks on the door, prospect opens the door, and for one reason or the other, they try to terminate a demo. Right then and there, of course, a salesperson should be expertly trained on how to overcome that on their own accord. They should have program rebuttals and responses in their holster so they're able to deliver that smoothly without stumbling over their words. However, in the event that they can't, right then and there from the door, they're going to call the office, call the call center or manager, and they're going to report what's going on, and then they're going to hand the phone to the homeowner so the homeowner can explain to the CSR agent what's going on, why they have to cancel. And this is important, right? Because we want to make sure that for any reason a salesperson is making an excuse as to why they don't want a demo, they're not doing that. But it's also 2 against 1, the salesperson, the CSR agent against the homeowner. And again, it's not to be malicious or take advantage of people, but a lot of times when people are buyers and they smell out that this is a salesperson, they'll make up some weak excuse as to why they don't want to go through the process. But if we can push past that and overcome it together as a team, a lot of times that ends up being a really good situation, right? And the CSR agent can be like, well, John and Mary, we have in our notes here that you agreed to the 60 to 90 minute presentation, that you were comfortable having the decision makers present, you understood, you agreed to it. The salesperson drove an awfully long way. I tell you what, if you can just give them a little bit of your time, he'll go in, take some measurements, see what you want to have done and need to have done, and leave you the no obligation estimate. It's good for 1 full year. That way, if we make a good impression on you, we'll be having an opportunity to get back with you and your business in the future when you're ready. So if we can give him just a few minutes of your time, he'll be out of your hair before you know it, okay? So then a lot of times that can help break through and get that salesperson into a presentation. Now, included with this first call, again, no shows, cancellation attempts, and then for any reason, a customer's trying to give a salesperson a time constraint or trying to terminate a presentation, right? And this is so important. I've had so many circumstances where sales rep tried to call me from the home and they said, Dominic, we got to reschedule this. We're halfway through the presentation. We have to reschedule this because the homeowner has to go to work. And then inevitably we get the homeowner on the phone and we ask them a few questions, right? We say, it's our understanding that you have to leave your house and go to work. Is that accurate? And the customer would respond with, no, we actually just have to cut our grass, or we just have to go to Walgreens and pick up a prescription, or whatever it is. But it's these reasons that are not a legitimate reason to reschedule a full-blown meeting, right? So then we can push past that and get that salesperson back into a presentation to do their job and stop making excuses as to why they're trying to reschedule the meeting. So any of those time constraint issues, you want to make sure that it's legitimate, that it's real. And of course, if a sales rep's demoing a one-party situation where all the decision makers are not present, a lot of you call it a one-legger. Any of those situations where they're rescheduling it, those phone calls must be placed from inside the home. Because the last thing you want your call center doing is trying to chase people down, trying to get them back on the calendar, because they can simply ignore your calls, right? And then it's just like pulling teeth to try to get them back on the schedule. So it's a lot easier if the salesperson's already in front of them. Just call them when you're there, hand the phone to the homeowner, and then we'll get them back on the calendar, ideally within 72 hours or less. So you can see I'm breathing a little heavier. This extra 15 pounds makes all the difference. So that first phone call, again, for any reason the sales rep's not able to demo, they're calling from the home, and we're getting full detailed reporting communication on what's going on, so we can make the necessary course corrections along the way as a team. So the second phone call I want to share with all of you is, if a sales rep closes the sale, we want them calling from the kitchen table, from inside the home in front of John and Mary Homeowner, to report all the details of the sale and celebrate this new customer we're welcoming to our family. And there's a couple of reasons why this is powerful. One, of course, is psychologically it helps button up the sale. Because when a sales rep is calling the place of business and reporting the sale, the details, the project is already in motion, right? It's like we're getting things ready to be ordered, we're scheduling the final measured inspection, we're reporting all the details, the scope of the work to the office, because we're going to begin ordering materials and getting things moving forward. So it's a bigger commitment. It's more skin in the game. And then also it helps provide your call center or your administrative staff all the details of the sale, so they can enter that into the CRM right away. So everyone has a flawless stream of communication on what's going on with the project. So when the sales rep calls to report the sale from the home, they're going to talk about the scope of the work. They're going to talk about what products and services we're doing. They're going to explain, is it cash or finance? What lender did they get approved for? How much did they get approved for? How much was their deposit? Was that cash, check, or credit card? So all the details of the sale can immediately be entered in the CRM, so we can start tracking and monitoring the status of this sale, this order. But it helps button up that sale. It's a much stronger commitment. And again, we want to celebrate welcoming to the family as a team. So whoever's fielding that call from your call center staff, make sure that they are welcoming to the family, celebrating it, congratulating them on choosing the #1 rated home improvement company in their area for their home improvement needs. So you got the two calls there. You got, for any reason you're not demoing, and then also to report any sale that's made from the home. The last one, which is a big game changer, is the higher authority call, okay? And this is, if for any reason a sales rep cannot close a sale on their own accord, they are required by law, by your company's law, to make an attempt at a higher authority close before leaving. So now what this is, some people call this a phone drop, a neighborhood reference program, a manager drop, whatever it is. You're calling a higher authority to make one additional attempt at trying to earn that prospect's business before throwing in the towel, waving the white flag of surrender, and of course squeezing the juice out of this opportunity. Now the way I explain this to salespeople is, when you enter a house, the furthest thing from your mind should be that I have to call my manager to close this sale. Obviously, if I'm a sales warrior, my attitude is, I can close this shit on my own. I don't need to call anybody to close this sale. And that should be your attitude, and truthfully, most of your sales should be consummated on your own accord. However, and this is a big however, let's say I'm a 50% closer on my own accord, congratulations, but that still means how much of the business is not being closed? 50%. So if I'm running 50 leads in a month, nice busy schedule, I close 25 of them, that means there's 25 sales that I'm not converting on my own accord, And in those 25 circumstances, it would be mandatory, not optional, mandatory that salesperson calls the manager, someone in the call center, from the home in front of the customers before leaving. Because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So we want them taking the shot. And again, we know psychologically that people can only say no so many times, and 82% of people have to say no at least 4 or 5 times before they say yes. So a lot of times it's that one last no, that one last objection that sales rep pushes through that helps get that sale over the finish line and convert. And in addition to that, when you call a higher authority, it's the only real effective way to legitimize second and third degree price drops, right? So one mistake salespeople make is on their own accord, they'll lay down the total investment, then they'll give a discount, and then they'll give another discount, and then they'll give another discount. And it's like you have all these discounts up your sleeve, you start to lose a lot of credibility and legitimacy if you personally, as a salesperson, are authorizing all these different price drops for no particular reason. So when you call a higher authority, you really make it a big deal. And we got all kinds of different scripting and processes for the salesperson and the sales leader how to tee this up effectively. But when you call on a higher authority, it really legitimizes and builds value in another price drop and another incentive and another reward. And it helps maintain all the credibility and trust and integrity of that salesperson. So big game changer. But of course, how you tee this call up really matters. But the 3 calls go as follows. For any reason a sales rep is not demoing, it could be no-show, one leg, time constraints, cancellation attempts. They're calling from the house so we can discover with absolute clarity what exactly is going on and see if we can come together as a team to overcome that together. If the sales rep's closing a sale, they're going to report all the details of that sale from the house, right? All the facts, scope of work, cash finance, all the monetary elements of the sale. And then for any reason they can't close the sale on their own accord, they're going to call from the home and we're going to go through a higher authority close together. And I promise you that when you and your salespeople role play the script of the higher authority close, it's going to help you convert at least 25% of those sales they're not closing on their own accord. So it could be another 1 to 2 sales a week, depending on how many sales your team is running. And, salespeople, when they know they have to make a call before leaving the house, they tend to be more in their A game. They tend to be more dialed in because they don't want to always be calling you dead in the water, right? Hopeless because they didn't execute the closing sequence and the master presentation properly. They want to call you proud that they've navigated through the objections, they funneled it down to money, they got an offer on the table, and they're calling to execute this higher authority call properly. It's a game changer. As I said, I've had multiple companies that implemented this one policy of mandating a phone call be placed from inside every home and every lead, and their company-wide closing percentage jump over 10%. So when they can get into more demos, when we can hold them accountable on time constraints, when we can push beyond the smokescreen excuses that the prospects have a lot of times, and then also squeeze the juice out of every opportunity by doing another close at the negotiating table before leaving the home. Tell you what, those 3 things combined are going to boost your company-wide closing percentage, demo rate, retention, all of the above. It's an absolute game changer. So forgive me for my breathing. This 75-pound pack is definitely impressive. It's intense. But guess what? I'm going to push through the discomfort and we're going to make it happen. I'm going to get to the point where this doesn't feel like anything. So if you're a sales leader, I hope this really inspired you. If you want to learn more about crafting a detailed policy and procedures document, essentially as the governing document to hold your sales team accountable, if you don't have one, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you craft one. I spend most of my days working with sales leaders and owners, trying to draft up these documents of accountability and these policies. Because one little policy like that, if you can increase your closing percentage, your profitability, your retention by 10% across the board, what would that mean for your business? And that's the type of results that we see over and over again at Gross University. So I appreciate you spending time with me. This is a longer Warrior Wisdom Walk, but I wanted to make sure I got through all 3 of those major calls made from inside the home. If you like this content, make sure you give it a thumbs up, comment on it, share it with your friends. Again, we're trying to build this YouTube channel. I want to grow it up to over 1,000 followers as soon as possible, and then tens of thousands. And as I explain in all these talks, I'm going to be sharing everything I know on these Warrior Wisdom Walks, essentially dumping loads of free content for you. So whether or not you work with us, you're going to get the slow drip of world-class education through these Warrior Wisdom Walks to make sure you don't miss an episode. So I appreciate your time. Have a beautiful day. And on behalf of Grassi University, yes, you are a closer.